Business ownership has never been hotter, but how do you do it? That's where I come in. Allow me to guide you on your journey. Welcome to Ion Franchise. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another fabulous episode of Ion Franchising. I'm your host, Lance Graulich. Today, we're going to talk restoration. So a lot of you don't even know what restoration is, but we're going to hear all about it shortly from a good buddy of mine with a super, super hot brand. People ask me all the time, Lance, what is hot? Should I go with a smaller brand where I can gobble up a bunch of territory, or should I go with some, massive, well-established brand? Well, let me tell you something. This is a brand that just launched in April of 2023, and they've sold 48 territories so far to like over 20 people. Incredible, incredible brand. Without further ado, my buddy Dan Claps, the CEO of Voda Restoration and Cleaning. Welcome, buddy.
Lance, thanks for having me. I'm excited. As you know, I'm a listener, so it's fun to be on the other side today.
Well, I love it. Long-time listener, first-time caller, right?
Exactly.
So anyway, let's talk about how Dan Claps got in the world of franchising in the first place.
Absolutely. Like many, it's not something that I went to school for and thought one day I'm going to be a franchise executive. I got my start in business in college. I had a staffing and recruiting business. It was a business, but it was more of a job, meaning when I went to sell that business, I wanted to get out of it in my early 20s. I tried to sell it, and I learned that it wasn't really a business. It was a job. I made money, but it was all dependent on me. And so I wound that business down. And my dad actually said, why don't you look at franchises? And so I looked at franchise opportunities because they were all about systems and process. And this was back in 2014. And I was exploring, like many of your listeners, I was exploring investing into a franchise. I specifically was looking at home services because when I was 18, I had served sold Kirby vacuum cleaners door to door. And so I knew home services was all about like marketing and building a tighter mousetrap and sales. As I explored options, though, I kind of realized I was just under the financial needs to really be successful with something at that stage of my life. And so instead of doing a home services franchise, I actually got into a franchise called Murphy Business and Financial, which is a franchise that teaches you how to be a business broker. So I was a business broker in a franchise back in 2014. Did that for about a year and a half. Then I quickly realized I was kind of making the mistake, if you will. I was, again, self-employed, really. Everyone knew only me. Wasn't really building a business. And so in 2016, I went off on my own and co-founded a lead generation company in the franchise space with a previous partner. We built that business for about 7 years to about 100 employees and contractors doing several million in revenue. And that business was then acquired by a private equity firm in the franchise space in May of 2022 before getting into this current role that I'm in.
And the logical next step was you love the industry so much, I might as well stay in it and be a franchisor. Is that what happened?
Well, being in the lead generation space where you're providing leads in that industry, it's probably not the best analogy, but I'm going to use it because I can't think of a better one. When you sell leads, you're the crack dealer in the crack house, or you're the water. You have all the water in the desert, if you will. Everyone wants you have. And so for my better
the hot
part
commodity.
of my yes, and excuse my analogy, I just think it's relevant. But for the better part of my 20s, I was able to have direct access to founders and CEOs of large franchise brands, be involved in different meetings and conferences, and I learned a tremendous amount over those 10 years, or 7 years, excuse me, of being around that. And so when I sold my lead generation business, what I felt was franchisors don't necessarily do as great of a job around the marketing and sales as they could. And that was an area that I have expertise. And then secondarily, being in that seat, I had direct access to some really remarkable players in the space that I could recruit into the company.
So let me jump in right before we get specifically to Voda and how that connection actually happened. Why don't you share with the audience why a franchise? There are so many people that listen to this show that are interested in business ownership, they're not necessarily sure if franchise is right for them. So why franchise?
Something I often tell people that are talking with our brand that are far along and to, close to making a decision, if they're, in that far along in our process, it means that we felt like they're, capable to run a Voda, right? They have the chops and business know-how. And I often will say, look, I don't think you would fail doing this on your own. I think you would succeed. You have the right background. But what you're going to do is you're going to leapfrog many, many years of trial and error. We can both agree that if you have never done this, it's going to have to be trial and error, right? You can't just magically know what to do.
Yeah.
But if you go with a franchise, you'll have those proven systems and you'll have a community of people to kind of tap into. One of the things I've learned is whenever someone's ever told me that I couldn't do something, they were wrong. I could do it, in my opinion. It was just how hard would it be? And so
Yes.
I find that anyone listening, it's not rocket science. You could start your own business, but why not make your life easier? And all you're doing as an exchange is pay a small franchise fee one time and a royalty, which most franchisors this day and age are justifying through a tremendous amount of different support verticals. So to me, you join a franchise to leapfrog many years of trial and error.
Yeah, exactly. I love it. So Voda, how did you find Voda? How did Voda find you and this relationship start?
Yeah. Well, so about a year ago when I decided to be a franchisor, the first thing I thought about was there's three things people get when they buy a franchise. They get a brand. Brand doesn't necessarily mean that everyone knows the brand, but a brand is something that stands out and turns heads and attracts customers. McDonald's in the 50s, we didn't all know McDonald's, but when you saw those golden arches, you said, what the heck is that? You would drive through and then get a great experience and tell your friends, right? So it wasn't about brand as in everyone knows the brand, but brand as in it pulls in customers. Number two, you get systems and you get people. I quickly knew that the first thing people needed was a seasoned executive who's been a franchisor. And so that's when our COO and co-founder, Zach Nolte, joined me. He's got 10 years in home service franchising, running franchise brands.
Mhm.
Him and I together, we started looking at home services, probably like some of your clients. We looked at roofing and painting and plumbing and restoration. And one day we took a piece of paper and we said, let's come up with a playbook of what we want. Forget the industry. And all we did, Lance, is we wrote down what we wanted out of a business. In this order, we wanted a need, not a want, something that was recession proof. We wanted something where third parties would pay. I like to think of the movie War Dogs with Jonah Hill. Like they're selling to the government. The government's got a big pocketbook when they need something. Insurance can pay when they need to pay, right? So third party pay. Three, we wanted an industry that was growing, not shrinking. Restoration's a $300 billion industry, which I could break down more, but it's growing 5% year over year. We wanted a simple business, which we'll touch on why it is simple, maybe a little more complex than some, but very simple business. And we wanted something where the labor pool was easy to hire. And then finally, we wanted a business where we could utilize lead generation strategies, which we'll get into. But because restoration's average ticket is so high, like around $3,000 per job, we could spend a bit more on marketing and still have a really nice profit on a job. So restoration kind of checked all those boxes. And then that's how we got into it. The only thing, about restoration that we didn't like was, there's 14,000 water damage cases a day in America, every day, with an average ticket of $3,000. Now, that's not just, I'm down in Florida, there's hurricanes and floods. That's not the only thing. There are pipes breaking, toilets overflowing, sump pumps, feminine products get flushed down a corporate, in a medical plaza, and the whole, septic system, runs up. There's so many water events. But if there isn't a water event, I cannot convince you to dry a dry home. Like unless I sneak in your house with like a hose and I put it through your window while you're sleeping at night and flood your house, I can't make you dry something that's not dry. And so the only thing we didn't like about restoration was this kind of like sometimes lack of business. And so what's unique about Voda is we're the only brand to do cleaning and restoration, where we also clean floors and carpets, building a predictable revenue stream.
Everybody wants that recurring revenue.
Absolutely.
So this happened, Voda's born, you start franchising, you're the CEO, you have your partner, the COO, You have a great team, Steve. What's Steve's position? Director of
Vice
Franchise Development?
President, yeah, VP of Development. Yep.
VP of Development. Perfect. Wonderful. So let's talk now. Let's dive into exactly what Voda is. It's restoration, and define exactly what those services are. You already mentioned that the recurring revenue and the cleaning aspects that most restorations don't do. But I just want to make sure everybody understands what the full realm of what a restoration business does.
Well, first thing I'll share is if your listeners are listening saying, I'm not a handy person, maybe I don't know restoration, that makes two of us. I'm kidding. Of course, I know a good amount about restoration, but I am the least handy person you'll meet. I'm a business person first, and our franchise owners are very much similar to that, where they have a business acumen. They're great leaders. They want an executive business model, and we hire the team that does the day-to-day work. So restoration is a broad topic. So restoration is a $210 billion annual commercial industry and an $80 billion residential industry, about 300 billion, close to it. Just put in perspective, home services is a $525 billion industry. So it's a big portion of the space. It's anything to do with restoring a property. So it could be water damage, mold, fire, smoke, contents, all types of restoration.
Okay.
It's the restoring of properties. For us, where we focus on extracting water from a home or business that has a water incident, a flood or pipe break, etc. We extract that water out of the home or business into our truck, into a tank, and then we cut the drywall to remediate or to essentially stop mold from happening, and then we dry the floors. That is the business where we do not do the reconstruction component that another business handles. We specifically focus on the extracting or mitigation of water, and then we deal with mold and we deal with fire and smoke. That is the core of our business. And then we have the cleaning side where we clean floors, carpets, tile, and grout, which feeds really well into, both models feed each other really well.
So let's roll into the investment. What is the investment, whether you want to cite the exact item 7 in the disclosure document or just an average? What is that?
Yeah, our investment in item 7 is about 146 to 198 all in. We are SBA approved, so people can finance the investment with a down payment through an SBA or HELOC or rollover. What people don't always realize is if you buy a territory or multiple territories, the bulk of your investment is on one territory. The second and the third, first of all, we follow a development schedule. You're not opening all three at once. You're able to buy a larger market share. But on the second and third territory, for example, you really only have the franchise fee, the truck, a couple of marketing investments, a few other investments, but it's not the full 146 to 198. And so what I always tell people is you could buy a gym for 500,000, or you can buy a home service brand for 200,000 and then incrementally grow without investing a tremendous amount more in these additional territories. We see a lot of multi-unit owners coming into our system for that reason.
Yeah, perfect. So what do you see in common with these, 25 or so franchisees you have on board? What do you see that they have in common? And what is it you're not looking for in a franchisee? I'm sure you kick people out of the process.
Sure. Well, and I'll piggyback off what I said and lead into this, but I think we're finding really smart people that want to get into a business without, being in the day-to-day of the business. Now, I think you share a similar mindset to me around what semi-absentee truly means, and we could talk about that.
Yes.
But we look for people that don't want to be in the day-to-day of the business. Now, what we did at Voda that I think is extremely unique, and honestly, 2024, one of my business resolutions is to ensure I communicate this more effectively to the industry in general and to prospective franchise owners, is, Lance, I sit on panels around how to award territories. I've awarded about 1,000 franchises in my career through my previous business. We have no issue finding franchise owners. But when we designed Voda, instead of making our population, some populations are maybe 200, that's like the average per territory. We made very large territories. They're 350,000 average in population. And, we didn't have to do that. We did that because we felt like that meant if someone bought 3 territories, they would have over 1 million in population typically. And that is going to stay. We're not changing that. That is the decision for the business. And so what I find fascinating is, we're not in the franchise fee business, we're in the royalty business, right?
Yeah.
And we see that if someone is going to buy 4 territories, instead they can buy 3 and take that extra money and put it toward their business, toward growing. And so we have really nice sized territories. And I think people see that and understand that's going to help lead to stronger unit economics. We don't allow people to come into our system that want to clean floors or operate a business. We want people who want to build a business that they're an owner, not an occupied, doing the jobs, if you will. This year in 2024, we really are encouraging. I don't want to call it a requirement, but we really do look for people that want to build 2+ territories. If you're going to do 1, it's a special circumstance, whether it's the market or maybe your background, if you're earlier in your career. But we're looking for people that want to build a big business. And finally, we are laser focused on what I would call the mayor of the town. So you would make a great franchise owner. I would make a good franchise owner, other than probably an inability to follow the rules. I'm just kidding. But, we want people that, I'll tell you all the amazing things we do to take work off our franchise owner's plate, but we don't do that so that they can, drink Mai Tais on the beach every day. I'm sure they can do that sometimes, but we take a lot of work off everyone's plate so that they can get out there and focus on growing their business, building relationships, networking. That's what we need out of our franchise owners.
Yeah. You hit something on the head earlier that I love that you dove into already, is semi-absentee ownership. There are brands that do not allow semi-absentee ownership, which is a goofy term that I think the franchise world created years ago, which means, owners are part-time. I'm sorry. Well, owners can be part-time in the business via semi-absentee ownership. And what is that to you, Dan? 10 to 20 hours a week on the business, as long as you have a team in place that's keeping things running. Obviously, in the beginning, you need to spend more time on it.
So, and by the way, did my camera angle, you good? You can still see me?
You're good.
Okay.
Perfect.
I switched angles here. So I'm going to try to keep this short because I can ramble on about this.
Oh, no worries.
I try not to quantify the time based on hours because it's so variable, such a it's such a difference between each person. I want to first start with an analogy. If you and I both owned Orange Theory locations, okay, you had 3 locations and I had 3 locations. You brought in a general manager who is super motivated. You took him to lunch every couple of weeks. Maybe you worked out a couple of times a week together. You gave him KPIs and guardrails, and you got the heck out of the way. And you encouraged him when needed, and you held him accountable when needed. And you really did everything you're supposed to do to manage a person properly. And then I had a couple Orange Theories where I micromanaged. I didn't give KPIs. I didn't build a personal relationship. I didn't give a vesting equity schedule. I didn't give a stake in the business. I didn't do anything really properly. Whose business do you think would require less time in the long run? Yours or mine? You would be working a hell of a lot less time than me. Now, is that Orange Theory or is that you and me? The difference.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
you.
It's me.
And your ability to manage. And so I often find franchises will tout semi-absentee versus another. My favorite is people say, well, this one, we don't need a salesperson. If you're selling roofing or plumbing or painting or restoration or whatever, or you're selling candy bars, whatever the business is, you typically need sales, marketing, ops, finance, and legal. Those are the buckets. And so to me, when someone says, I want to have a semi-absentee business, my answer is, all right, are you willing to have a general manager, eventually a salesperson? Are you willing to put capital into this? Are you willing to maybe give some equity out, or not give, but provide an opportunity to earn equity to the GM? Do you have the mindset of, I would rather have 100%, I'd rather have 80% of a watermelon than 100% of a grape, meaning I'd rather build a big business that I own 80% of and have people running it. And so I always tell people, like, I'm the perfect example. My last business was, I don't mean this to brag, but it was running completely without me. I was at the beach with my dad, and he used to joke, like, did you go out of business? What's going on? And in this business, if I wasn't doing strategy and meeting with my team, I'm not in the day-to-day of this business whatsoever. That is not because of Voda's model. It's because of my background in running businesses. And so, sorry for the long-winded answer, but
No, 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 you're good.
yes, it can absolutely be semi-absentee if people are willing to follow our playbook on how to hire an org chart that'll allow them to run it semi-absentee. Now, with that said, if you've got the kind of job where you can't even get on our calls at set times during the week, through our discovery process, you can't own a business. I'm sorry. If
Yeah.
you have a kind of job, I don't care if your job is busy, if you have flexibility throughout the day, like, give you a great example, Lance. We have a franchise owner. He's in med device. He sells capital, like med device equipment. He works a good amount, but he has a lot of flexibility in how he plans his days. That's fine. We need people, though, that can kind of have some autonomy in their schedule.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so overall, what do you see your people have in common? They obviously have good communication skills or interpersonal skills, obviously flexibility to some degree if they're keeping their day job, and the ability to, you know, learn to manage people if they haven't done it. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, and I would also say, like, I know this is a little bit gray, but like, we look for people that have an ability to trust but verify, but have the ability to trust. So my
Yeah.
best franchise owners, this sounds like a sales pitch, and I don't mean it to sound this way, but in my 10 years doing this, I have found the best franchise owners. They get the information, they process it, they make a decision, they go.
Yeah.
And that happens with the franchise. They get the FTD, they review the information, they come out to a discovery day, they make a decision. I was joking around with someone recently. He came to our discovery day, and he was on the fence. And I didn't mean it as a pressure. I meant, like, it's fine. If you don't feel ready, then we're not for you. If you date someone for long enough and you get to the altar and you say, well, wait, I need another couple of weeks, that woman's probably going to leave you, right? Or
Yes.
man. So
Good
I really do look
analogy.
for people that can make decisions, because next is going to be decisions on your truck and on your hiring. Like, we need people that can get the information,
Yeah.
process it, and make a decision. And that decision could be, no, this isn't for me. That's fine too. But I have found the best franchise owners, I think if I look back at all 25, they made a decision and moved forward. And the ones that kind of take longer end up not being as great a fit. I know that sounds like a sales pitch,
No,
but
no,
I mean
no.
it.
It's just like my recent client that I gave to you was a good decision maker with his wife, and they love Voda. They just recently joined Voda, and you guys did a fantastic job. Let's talk a little bit about that process. So you're doing really, you do franchise development different than some people. So describe your process and what those steps are.
Yeah. Well, the best way I can explain what we do is
Walking on
we,
hot coals?
yeah, we make them walk on hot coals before they buy. Um,
Not true for those listening. Don't be scared.
you know, I'm fairly young in my career. We've got a long trajectory ahead of us. There's about 837 territories across America that we can award. Whether I award those territories in 3 years, 6 years, or 10, they will be awarded. And then we'll only have royalties that grow our business, right? There won't be franchise development. And so having a longer term, I sold my last business. Candidly, I'm building something for the longer term. I'm not thinking about money today, right? And
Right.
so we're owned only by myself and my team. We don't have any board to answer to, or private equity firm that we have to show profit and loss statements to. And so we are not in a rush. And so why I say that is us being extremely smart about putting people that will be the best representations of the brand in each market is what I consider my number one job as the CEO of Voda, one of the number one jobs. And so what I try to explain to people is, don't come into our process like, I have the money and you guys are going to, take my money if I choose to buy. It's a mutual interview. And so
Always a
I've,
two-way street.
yeah. And this is not just for Voda. I think any good brand and your candidates that are listening to this, when you go to a job interview, if you go through 3 rounds of interviews and you get to the final interview, have you decided you're going to take that job? No. You're interviewing at 3 or 4 places. You want to get as
Yeah.
many offers as you can and then choose. I always encourage people, treat this like an interview and put yourself in a position where you can have 1 or 2 franchises that want you, and then you pick.
Yeah.
Don't make it the other way around where they say you're not a fit. And so in our process, it's a multi-week process. We look for people that can follow it. By the end of the process, you'll have all the information. And so, I mean, I can walk you through the steps, but it's really centered around getting the information at the right time and showing that you can follow a process. Listen, not everyone's a computer. They're people. They're not computers. We
Right.
can change things here and there. We're not, asking to be a robot, but we do look for people that can follow our process.
So besides having phone conversations and Zoom calls, at what point there's a discovery day or a meet the team day? Describe that a little bit and talk about the validation.
So I'll walk you through. So people come into our system, they get a video about us, they get to watch that video, they have an introductory call. That introductory call is very much just getting to know them, their needs, their goals, really just, asking some questions to see if they're a fit. We try to let people know if they're not a fit after the first call. But when they come from someone like yourself, we know that they've already been vetted. So that's very helpful. After that, we unpack the financials. So we'll get into the numbers on our second call. We really get detailed into that, into the FDD. I call the second call, the boring call. We get through all the stuff. And we, frankly,
Wait, the
remember I said
numbers aren't boring.
well, we try to get through anything that the first call is like, let's see if you're not a fit for us, right?
Yeah.
On the second call, it's like, let me give you everything that maybe would make us not a fit for you up front so that we can get those 2 things out of the way. And yes, the numbers are very exciting. We have a very strong item 19, which
Let's talk about the item 19 now. We've talked enough. We got to dive into some numbers. That's perfect.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a long-winded guy.
No. Everybody loves to hear numbers because at the end of the day, you have the franchise disclosure document. There's 23 items in there. There's a lot of useful information, including the item 19, which is the earnings claim. And then there's an opportunity to start speaking to franchisees for my candidates or anybody that's listening as they go through this process with you to determine, again, make a good decision. Are there any other red flags or the things I'm not figuring out? And when you talk to existing franchisees, that's like talking to your future wife's family. Are there red flags? Am I marrying a psychopath? Well, we don't want to marry a psychopath brand, right? Anyway.
Absolutely. So in our case, they do the numbers call, which our item 19 shows about 1.75 million in gross sales and a 23% net profit margin to the bottom line, about 400,000. Now that's 2022's numbers. All franchisors will produce 2023 in a couple months when the filing season happens. That's all mandated by the government. But what we encourage people to do is exactly what you said, validation. So as soon as you attend the unit economics call, which is the second call, and you've joined a leadership call, which we have all of our team on, you learn about our team. We really want to show you the depth of our organization. You're invited to join validation calls and talk with franchise owners. And Lance, to your point, being a Northeasterner, I like candor, right? So I believe validation, like if you get on with a brand and validation is just all honky-dory, everything's amazing, like this is great, I'm a little leery of that. I want to know the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm not going to run away just because there's some ugly, just like getting married, right? You have to have some ugly.
Yeah, no. Totally fine.
So validation is a place to get take the rose shaded glasses off that the franchisor has and get the reality from franchisees, and then know that, decide, just like you said, marriage or whatever, choose what are you okay with, what are you not okay with, and then you would come to a discovery day. For us, discovery day is very much an important component to what we do. We typically have candidates come with some type of background or some type of synopsis. My team is really looking together at this prospective franchise owner. And what we do, and I'll break this out for you real quick. We meet as a leadership team after that discovery day, shortly after. And the whole leadership team kind of votes around that candidate. we understand that our franchise development director has spent the most time with that person. So they a lot of times will have a lot of things. You don't know someone that much from one meeting. The
Yeah.
development person spent a lot more time. But we'll take that feedback, the leadership team's feedback. And what I love about that is sometimes when we're talking with the candidate, you may not see something, whereas the rest of the team does. So anyway, we basically have an interview process. We provide an approval letter or denial letter, and then we move forward toward awarding that franchise.
Perfect. So let's talk a little bit about training. So what does the training entail? Give us that, 1 minute snapshot on what the training, happens. I mean, are there two people required to come to training? How does that work?
Yeah, so people sign a franchise agreement. It's about 60 days before they attend the in-person training. Training starts right away, but the in-person is about 60 days, depending on the cycle, sometimes less, sometimes more, but about 60 days. From the time they sign a franchise agreement, we do a welcome call and we begin the onboarding process. It's very dialed in. We have a lot of things to check off around certifications and getting all the lead generation set up. We have a program called Talent Scout Lance, which is one of the things I'm most proud of. We're very good at finding general managers for the business with restoration experience. And so we'll start that process and we'll start getting interview opportunities in for our franchise owner so they can find their general manager.
You're actually helping them.
Yes, the Talent Scout program, if people get into validation, they'll hear that we're very strong with that particular program. And so we get the general manager. Hopefully they make an offer and hire them before they ever come to training, because then to answer your question, they're bringing their general manager with them typically to training.
Got it. Wonderful. Let's talk a little bit about marketing. You mentioned obviously all your lead generation experience. So what could new franchisees with Voda expect from you?
Training's a week-long in-person in our corporate office, which is in Wisconsin. We have an office and a training facility that we've just recently acquired and are building out. We train, we can literally flood that facility, show you what it's like to pull water out. So that's in person. And then people are able to go to our flagship location in Northern Virginia and continue training if they choose to with our founder. We have field success coaches that go out in the field and spend time boots on the ground with our franchise owners. And we meet every single week with franchise owners, every single week, every Friday, all of our franchisees, all of our corporate operations team, every week. And I always like to point that out, Lance. You will not find one of the most active leadership teams there are. That is not something that's normal. Zach Nolte, our COO, rolled that out in his previous brand of 10 years as the president. I love that call, but I'll be candid in saying we're a brand new brand. It's the honeymoon stage for all of our franchise owners. Yeah. To do that call years 2, 3, 4, 5, which we will continue to do, it allows us to hear feedback and address things head on, which I think makes us so much more proactive as a brand versus hearing it at the annual conference as the CEO, for example.
I love it. Keeps a tight-knit group and good communication. Fantastic.
It gets good information gets out fast. Bad information gets out fast.
Yeah.
And so it keeps us really on our toes, and I like that.
Yeah, good. So talk about marketing. You mentioned lead generation, all of your experience beforehand. What do all these franchisees get from you and that big brain of yours when it comes to marketing and lead gen?
I just have a big head, not brain, but.
Oh, sorry. Well, I assumed.
So my background and entire career really has been centered around lead generation. Our CMO, Christian Betancourt, was part of Anytime Fitness, where he managed a $50 million a year ad budget for franchisees.
Wow.
When it comes to marketing, we're very strong. We do all the Facebook ads, we do all the Google ads, pay-per-click ads, direct mail, anything you can think of, every lever you can pull when it comes to online and physical marketing, we pull and we take care of for our franchise owners. We have a call center that answers the phone 24/7 to make that easier. So we do a lot. But I will always preface that no matter what, no matter how much you spend on marketing online, nothing will replace local selling. local rep. Nobody wants to give Voda corporate in their ivory tower business. That property manager or plumber, they want to give you the business that's local. And so, what I always explain to people, and again, hopefully your listeners appreciate, I'm just the way you are, I'm just candid. If I didn't need franchise owners to do something, we wouldn't franchise. We'd open up 48 corporate locations. The reason this is a partnership is we provide all the infrastructure, we provide all the tools, but we need someone to take those tools out of the toolbox and use them. And so, for us, all that marketing makes the local selling work. And without the local selling, the marketing doesn't work. Without the marketing, the local selling doesn't work. We need both kind of firing on both cylinders. And so we'll take all the marketing off your plate so you can focus on the local selling, or your salesperson can focus on the local selling.
Fabulous. Well, and look, that's what everybody wants. They don't want to have to make too many decisions on these fronts, so to speak. I would imagine as you grow, you'll deal with marketing co-ops and things like that. But, at this point, it's wonderful that you deal with it all on your own to help them grow. And I would imagine if I had newbie franchisees on this call right now, they could be like, man, they do all this stuff for me. I don't have to deal with it. And that's why people get into a franchise, right?
I mean, 100%. I mean, we invested, tens of thousands of dollars into marketing content. We invested, a tremendous amount into marketing content. It wouldn't make sense as an independent location, but because we make that collateral for 48 locations, it's cost effective for us, and we provide that to just the Voda brand alone was 6 figures of investment into branding it the way it is. You get that from day one as just part of your franchise fee.
Love it. Dan, you've dropped a tremendous amount of knowledge here on everybody today. What are your final thoughts, final tips for those listening? Final words of wisdom from Mr. Dan Claps.
Listen to your consultant. If you're listening to this, one of the things I like about you, Lance, is you put out a lot of great content for free. You just put it out there. And I always think to myself, if that's what you're putting out just for the, universe to listen to, what is it like being coached by you? So I think if you're listening to this, talk with Lance, if you're interested in Voda, reach out to you, and we'd love to talk. And my last piece of advice would be, pick a brand not based on the industry, but based on what you like to do. Talk with a consultant like yourself, get to know what you like, and then get matched to opportunities. And I think everything is it's just a start, man. You just got to jump in, go for it. And hopefully you're the next multi-unit President's Club owner one day.
Love it. Well, Dan Claps, CEO of Voda, thank you so much for being here. And, we're going to see each other soon enough. But take care, buddy. Thanks for being here. If you're ready to talk about franchise opportunities, hit the link below to schedule a call. My services are free. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for listening.